Hello and welcome back to the Littlest Sewing Room. Today I'm going to show you how to thread the LZ2-B854-3 Brother Industrial Sewing Machine. Now for this video I will be referring to this machine as Rufus because my son has named this machine Rufus. Apparently everything needs to be named Rufus at the moment, but yes, this is Rufus. So I've had this machine a couple of weeks now, so I thought I'd just do a couple of videos on threading it up. For anyone who is interested in getting a machine like this or a similar machine, Singer's 457A, the 105 onwards, is very similar to this Brother. With the way that it threads and the way that it works. This machine is very different to your standard sewing machine in the fact that it has an oscillating feed for the take-up thread, which I will show you more of obviously through the video as I thread this machine. So the first thing we need to do is wind our bobbin. So we take our thread, we pass it through this hole here, like so, on this little spindle. And you see this knobble here, it's kind of like a sprung loaded sort of almost tension disc type object. So we bring our thread, we put it through the groove at the top and we just pull it through. Oh, that's got a bit, there we are. And then we make sure our thread is wrapped nice and tight around our bobbin because we want obviously our bobbin to wind nicely. So I'll just wrap that around there a few times, make sure it's good and tight. And then we engage this lever here. Now once we've got this ready for winding, we just switch our motor on. It should start winding our bobbin. And that's our bobbin wound. We'll put that to one side and we'll do our lower bobbin later. Now this machine does have quite an interesting thread path on it because it is an oscillating feed. So it threads in a very different way to probably any other sewing machine you've ever come across. So we start with this top thread guide here. So we take our thread, we pass it through the back hole like so. A bit fiddly. Trying to do this with the camera in front of me is quite awkward. And then we loop it round and then we pass it through this front hole here. So can you see how it forms a loop around this thread guide here? Next we have this funny little thread guide here to do up. So this one again, you pass your thread through the top, the little top hole like so, and then we loop it round through the bottom hole like that. So our thread is wrapped round again, same as it was on the top. So let me pull this back for you. So can you see there's like a hole with a groove next to it? So we take our thread, push it down and through until our thread is running through that central hole nice and cleanly, and we let that go. And then we're going to do our tension discs. So in order to thread our tension discs, we take our thread, we loop it round once, all the way round, and then we take it round again, and then we bring it over our tension spring. So now it's gone through our tension check spring, we then take our thread and bring it round the back of this hook here to the front, and then we pass it through this hole and we feed our thread towards the front of the machine. Now I have seen in other videos, if you're using a heavier thread, you can also then re-loop the thread through this hole and towards the front. Because I'm using a lighter thread and the nature of what I'm stitching, I don't need to do that, okay? So now I've got it towards the front of the machine. There's this hole here, you see on the end of this attachment, this is all one piece, and we just send our thread through that little hole there, like so. So now it's time to thread the oscillating feed on this machine. It's very similar to the Wilcox & Gibbs high-speed lock stitch machine, but obviously it's made a good few years later. So we take our thread and there is a groove that runs along the top behind this round plate here, and we just take our thread and we run it up through the groove, and then we let it drop down the other side so that it now sits nicely onto the oscillating feed. So now we've got the thread over the oscillating feed, it starts to look at threading the needle. So we have a guide here at the front of the machine. We just need to loop our thread into the back of there like so, and then there's another guide here on the top of the needle bar. Again, we just took our thread around the back of it, and now we need to thread our needle. Now these machines thread from front to back. So in that regard, it's very similar to the Singer 20 years. So I'll just get my little threader, pop it through, and then we hook our thread on, and we just pull our thread from front to the back of the machine. And wiggle this one through. It's been a bit temperamental, just bear with me. There we go. And then there's a groove in the foot that we just thread our thread through. There we go. So next we're going to do our bobbin. So this bobbin case is very different to many bobbin cases that you will ever see. Yeah. So with this bobbin case, it's got two grooves. You've got a groove here, a groove here. Well, it's got three grooves and another little notch here. Okay, so we take our bobbin, we make sure our thread is running off to the right, like we do with most of our bobbins, and we place it within the case like so. Yeah. Then we take our thread and we have to send it through the first groove here down to the tension spring. It can be a little bit fiddly. Okay. And then we carefully tuck that thread under the tension spring. Can you see? Now, normally with any other bobbin, you would then be taking this across the front here, either through a pigtail like with the 20U or even just dropping it down the front. But with this machine, you then have to take your thread, run it through this back groove here and bring it round and up into this notch so that it sits like so. Okay. And now we need to get our bobbin case into the machine. Now, I don't know how well you can see down in here, but this actually looks the reverse of any other machine than you've probably used. So the Singer 20U, your hook eye mechanism sits more to the front. As with a lot of machines, they sit to this side, so you just slot your bobbin in from this side. But on this machine, you have to slot it in from the back. And it can be a bit fiddly, particularly if you're new to the machine. So we take our bobbin case and bobbin like so. Yeah, and we hold it like this, and then we thread it in from the back of the machine. So the thread runs over the back, down this side. Your spring is off to your left, and then you've got this notch to your right here. So we take it round and bring it up and underneath the machine like so. I find an extra finger can help just get it to slot in place, and then we are clicked into place, and then we just need to feed our thread from the bottom through to the top. So I'm just gonna, I keep forgetting this is a clutch motor and it locks. I have to put my foot on the pedal just to turn the hand wheel. There we go. And that is how you thread this sewing machine. So now the machine's all threaded up, I'm just going to give it a quick test with just a piece of spare wadding from one of the ties that I'm working with at the moment. I'll just switch the machine on. She is quite noisy. She still has the clutch motor. Let's check that she is sewing nicely. I keep forgetting about this. There we go. I'll just have to put my foot to flip the hand wheel a bit to loosen the threads out. But there you go. A perfect stitch. This machine sews absolutely beautifully. I will be doing further videos using this machine. It's becoming a bit of a mainstay in the littlest sewing room now. Don't panic. I do still have my 20U and I do use that for different projects. It just depends on what machine is suitable for whatever I'm doing, basically. And there you are. That's how we thread Rufus. Like I say, Rufus is very similar to the Singer 457A machines from the 105 variant onwards. So if you've got one of those machines, this method of threading should also work for you. I hope you've enjoyed watching this video, and I look forward to seeing you all again soon.
Subscribe. 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 Subscribe.